do this joke. So, okay, well, we're all kids, but you know what I mean. We don't have the little 2-year-old here. Okay, so this is called the pastor's ass. It's clean. The pastor entered his donkey in a race and it won. The pastor was so pleased with the donkey that he entered it in the race again and it won again. The local paper read, "Pastor's ass out front." The bishop was so upset with this kind of publicity that he ordered the pastor not to enter the donkey in another race. The next day, the local paper headline read, "Bishop scratches pastor's ass." This was too much for the bishop, so he ordered the pastor to get rid of the donkey. The pastor decided to give it to a nun in a nearby convent. The local paper, hearing of the news, posted the following headline the next day. "Nun has best ass in town." Play on words, right? This is great. The bishop fainted. He informed the nun that she would have to get rid of the donkey, so she sold it to a farmer for $10. The next day, the paper read, "Nun sells ass for $10. This was too much for the bishop, so he ordered the nun to buy back the donkey and lead it to the plains where it could run wild. The next day, the headlines read, "Nun announces her ass is wild and free." Oh my gosh. The bishop was buried the next day. The moral of the story is being concerned about public opinion can bring you much grief and misery, even shorten your life. So be yourself and enjoy life. Stop worrying about everyone else's ass and you'll be a lot happier and live longer. Anybody want copies of that one? Okay. Because whenever there's a great one, you know, people go, "Oh, Mary, can I have a copy of that?" You know, Muriel says, "Can I have some of your jokes? I'm gonna go." I know, right? Because it's always a great icebreaker, isn't it? Well, seriously, folks, this has been a long journey, you know, in order to have these beautiful women come to this place. And, you know, when you go through the journey of being a practitioner, it's not for the faint of heart. I'm just going to say that, because what it entails is having them look at themselves under a microscope, so to speak. Y'all practitioners remember that. And they have to really be present to what's going on. And sometimes it wasn't pretty. I mean, these women went crazy on me, and I went crazy on them. So whenever I'm facilitating it, I get to experience that shift too, and get to allow myself to really embrace these teachings yet again. But one of my favorite people in the world, he's super absolute, and he uses a lot of Bible quotes and things like that, but he was originally started out as a Christian Science practitioner. His name was Joel S. Goldsmith. So I'm going to read you a little bit about him, because this journey is similar to what a lot of the practitioners do, but I don't think people realize that there's so much more, you know, to this particular teaching. So Joel S. Goldsmith, he was born in 1892. Do you believe that? Wow. So he was born to, you know, people of Hebrew ancestry, but they didn't practice. They weren't practicing Jews. So when he was about 12, his mother told him that someday he might want to know more about the different churches and religions in the world, and especially about God. And if he wanted to begin, he could have the opportunity to gain knowledge from the Jewish temple, because he was, at 13, a boy goes through his taking on the responsibilities of manhood. They do a ceremony. And about 12 and a half years before, he was sent to a Reformed Jewish temple and given some instructions so that he can be confirmed at 13. And if you know anything about the Jewish faith, Reform is probably the most liberal. It would be what I would consider more like a spiritual journey rather than Orthodox, okay? So anyway, he completed his schooling and he started working on the business with his dad because he felt that he would learn more instead of finishing school. And so when he was 16 and a half, Joel was taken to Europe on a buying expedition as an assistant to his father, who was a buyer of European laces and allied lines of merchandise. To this work, Joel brought an innate intuitive faculty and knew exactly the right laces to buy at the right time, so his travels began. At first in connection with the business world that was to occupy him for the entire early part of his life. There was also a lot of illness in the Goldsmith family when he was a child. And at one time, Joel wanted to become a doctor and began reading medical books. In 1915, whilst on a business trip in England, his father became very ill and was rushed to a hospital. He was hospitalized for over 2 months and apparently near death's door when Joel got talking to the father of a girlfriend who happened to be a Christian Science practitioner. And if you don't know the history of our belief system here, that's what Ernest Holmes learned as one of the, I'm going to say the branches, is Christian Science. And so that's why it's called Science of the Mind, because he took a lot of the tenets from Christian Science. The Christian Scientist said he would pray for Joel's father, and shortly after this, to everyone's amazement, his father was up, dressed, and ready to go home. And for 25 years after that, knew very little of illness, even surviving his wife by a number of years. Isn't that fascinating? And it was interesting. I saw this, I was cleaning up my office, and obviously, Spirit always tells you to pull the things that are being called to read. The miraculous recovery of his father led Joel to begin a study of Christian Science, in which he sought answers to the question that naturally arose in the mind of a person who had traveled the world as he had, questions that kept plaguing him with an urgency that drove him on. And I'm going to skip down a little bit, but when he actually joined in World War I, he joined the Marines. Do you believe that? That's quite a journey for this man. And he said that he pondered for hours. He said, you know, it was illuminated for him, and he saw the mistaken zeal of the practice of the church that opened their doors to pray for victory, while none of them were praying for the enemy. Isn't that interesting? Because when we read, I think it's A Course in Miracles, but also Abraham, it talks about how if you're against something, you're actually for it. So what he was doing was bringing into consciousness, pray for everybody, because then that way the war will end quickly, okay? Rather than victory for one or victory for the other. You don't want to put energy on either one of them, and he realized that. So he said after the war, he found that the lace business, by the time handmade dresses had become obsolete and mass production of clothing had taken over. Handmade import lace was no longer in demand. And so he was going to take over the business, but he couldn't, so the business collapsed, his dad's business. In addition to business difficulties, he became critically ill with tuberculosis and was given 3 months to live. See, this is all the stuff I never knew about him. Since there was no medical hope, he decided that he would seek help from a Christian Science practitioner, which he did, and in 3 months he made a complete recovery. When Joel was telling of this experience a few years later, a skeptic insisted that a wrong diagnosis had been made and that Joel had never had such a thing, because if he had, I know, do you love this? He would not have been cured. So Joel agreed to submit to an X-ray examination, which showed that he had only one lung. But where the other lung should have been, isn't this wild? There was, as he described it to me, a wall of muscle. Wow. I know. Isn't that incredible? It gets better. So, let's see, I'm going to move on. Let's see. Okay. So, and Joel says in the early days he was a salesman on the road, and he had certain spiritual principles, so he recognized that when a salesman goes to a business, normally the buyer immediately puts up defense, and when the salesman is supposed to break down that defense. If a salesman, however, were to go into a business house and the realization that he had a good product and that if the buyer needed it today, it was available to him. Interesting. And if he didn't need it, that was all right too. The buyer would feel that the salesman was not coming there to make a sale, but coming to be of service. So he was a master salesman and very successful for a number of years. And it was during that period he contracted a bad cold. And what happened, he tells in his own words. I was taken sick in the city of Detroit, went to a building that was filled with Christian Science practitioners, found the name of a practitioner on the board, went up to this man's office, and asked him to help me. He told me it was Saturday, and he didn't take patients on Saturday. That day he always spent in meditation and prayer. To this I said, this is Joel, of course you wouldn't turn me out looking the way I do, and I really was looking bad. He said, and the practitioner says, no, come on in. And I went in, and he permitted me to stay there for 2 hours with him. He talked to me of the Bible, he talked to me of truth. Long before the 2 hours were up, I was healed of that cold, and when I went out on the street, I found I couldn't smoke anymore. When eating my dinner, I found I couldn't drink anymore. The following week, I found I couldn't play cards anymore. And I also found that I couldn't go to the horse races anymore. What? And the businessman inside me had died. You know, meaning that he was on another path. Within 36 hours of my first spiritual experience, a woman buyer who was a customer of mine said that if I would pray for her, she would be healed. The only prayer I knew at that moment was, now I lay me down to sleep. And I didn't see that was going to do much healing. But she insisted that if I could pray for her, she would be healed, and there was nothing for me to do but pray. So I closed my eyes, and I'm happy to say that I would have been honest with God. I said, Father, you know that I don't know how to pray, and I certainly know nothing about healing, so if there's anything I should do, tell me. And very, very clearly, as so much as I was hearing a voice, I realized that man is not a healer. That satisfied me. That was the extent of my praying, but the woman had her healing, the healing of alcoholism. The next day a traveling salesman came and he said, Joel, I don't know what your religion is, but I know that if you pray for me, I could get well. And what are you going to do about that? Argue? No. Let's close our eyes and pray. That's what we always say. You know, in prac training, I always say, you know, somebody will come up when we do a brief prayer after service. And if somebody's like really upset and I say, okay, you don't want them to go into story, okay? I got it. Let's pray. And they'll keep blah, blah, let's pray. La, 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 la. Let's pray. And that's what we do. So he said, Father, okay, then he says, God, Father, there's another customer. While my eyes were closed and nothing was happening, the salesman touched me and said, wonderful, the pain is gone. And this was a daily experience. Let's see, I'm going to move on to the rest of this. From that moment on, there were two men. There was Joel, an individual always hovering around somewhere in the background, but showing tendencies which consciously led to many human mistakes, many human errors of judgment, many human discords, but fortunately only apparent to himself at intervals. On the other hand, there was the individual who on that day of revelation or regeneration was ordained within as a spiritual healer. Isn't that beautiful? Let's see, I'm going to just read the last part. This marked the beginning of Joel's career as an independent practitioner of spiritual healing, noted for his remarkable work in transforming people's lives. After the publication of his book, The Infinite Way, in 1947, Joel traveled throughout the world as a teacher and a healer. Although Ghost's message was neither organized nor advertised, students in the Infinite Way increased in numbers, and today a worldwide student body exists which continues to practice and preserve his work. More than 30 books have been compiled from his tape-recorded lectures and classwork, including The Infinite Way, Practicing the Presence, and The Art of Meditation. So I wanted to read that because as a practitioner, it is a journey. It may not have been as dramatic as Joel S. Goldsmith, but for them, you know, it's about developing our consciousness, and it's for each and every one of us. Because as we develop trust and faith in God, miracles start to show up in our lives. If we have faith that our prayers are going to work, then the prayers are answered immediately. My mom and I were talking yesterday. I just did her taxes on TurboTax, and I was talking to her, and she says, you know, I really wanted to do some canning. I had all these apples, but I didn't have any jars. She says, I just said, you know, I really need some of those canning jars. And she said she went out in the garage, moved a few boxes, and there was a whole box of brand new canning jars. She says, see, God is always giving us exactly what we need. I go, I got it, Mom. I'm preaching to the choir. But I hear you. I said, that's fantastic, you know, at 93, that, you know, as we continue to develop. And what happens as we practice the presence, as we continue to know that truth, the grace just flows into our lives. The beauty and whatever we desire comes into our lives. And even when we are still having a little bit of baggage, it will bypass that. I really believe it does, because I know that I've still got some baggage hanging out there. But when I pray and I know the truth and I'm solid in that, then things shift and occur for me. So this is a quote from Joel S. Goldsmith, The Consciousness of Healing. Drop the patient, the disease, or the sin from your thought while you realize that this problem that is confronting you is an effect. Remember that it is an effect of what? Wrong thinking? No. An effect of sin? No. An effect of heredity? No. An effect of something in the body? No. It is an effect of the mind and the belief in two powers. So when we believe there's only one power and there's a oneness and a connection with spirit, then that shifts everything for us. Okay, well with that, I was being with and thinking about what we can do with these practitioners to celebrate them. So I'm going to have these young ladies come up, and we're going to come up here. We're going to have the practitioners come up here while I grab some things. And we're going to bless them with some qualities and some oils and things that will help them in their practice as a practitioner. Okay, so Douglas, I'm going to give you the Angel of Abundance oil. And if you want to read that, so let's see. Here, you can go ahead and read that. I'm going to have the mic passed from person to person. And okay, so we're going to start out because everything starts with abundance, right? And I'm going to have Douglas. And where would you ladies like to be anointed with abundance on your bodies? It's your choice. You want your hands? You want it? Yeah. Hands? Okay. So you go, yeah, go ahead and I'll hold this up for you, Douglas. Okay.
All right, so Angel of Abundance oil, blessed with the healing energy of angels. This oil can be used to attract into your life prosperity, success, and divine guidance.
Ooh, nice.
I like that.
Sounds good to me. Okay, that sounds wonderful. Okay. It's a little roll on, so roll it on their hands. And let's see, okay. All right, I'm going to give you this. All right, Muriel.
You are blessed.
Thank you.
Okay, so ladies, and Muriel, if you want to pop over here, I already poured some water, and I figured this would be the best. This is from the water from the Chalice Well, when I went there. Now, the Chalice Well, if you don't know, and because she's a Course in Miracles minister, okay, the Chalice Well has two places where you can gather water, and one is from when Jesus the Christ was there, and they have documentation that he was there. There's also an area that has, so it's the divine masculine and the divine feminine. So you have a combination and a balance of both within that water. So I wanted to have you gals drink this. And what, do you want to say anything about that, Maryum?
Well, I don't know if I want to say specifically about that, but yes, okay, so since we are at the center of the heart, I think this combination of masculine and feminine, I think that's the center of the Jesus' heart, to be in the world but not of it. So I think we are celebrating today the fact that you answer the call for love and for peace, and that is at the center of the heart, right? It's for you to be able to receive the Spirit and be guided how to live it on your horizontal plane. So at the center of the masculine and feminine, right? And so I think, you know, it's a great joy that we're going to participate in that and nurture with that, right? So I don't know how we want to do that.
They're going to pick up a glass each and drink.
This is for you, Roxy,
Yes.
and this is for Lily, practitioner Lily.
Cheers!
And so to the Spirit we drink. The
Yes.
spirit of love and peace and joy and abundance. And, you know, so this is not an end, but it's a beginning for you to be in the experience of your wholeness and to extend it in your community. And we are so pleased that you answer yes to the call for love and peace. So thank you for that.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, so next up we're going to have Cher. She is going to, I have a anointing oil for ascension. She's just going to bless your crown chakra, okay? And whatever you want to say, Cher, it's up to you.
So, I feel so happy to be able to congratulate you and to be able to touch your crown chakra, which is really special. So, this is for ascension. Yeah.
Yay. That's it. It's nice. Okay, and next we have Daryl Lynn, who has, I forgot what I gave you. Okay.
I have just what you need, what we all need. Fearlessness and confidence. And I'd like to anoint your third eye, if that's all right. So I see each of you as expressing and presenting the fearlessness that has brought you through all these experiences to this moment. And it's not the end, it's just the beginning. And there's more and more. So in the presence of the power of God, we are fearless, we are confident. So the confidence and the fearlessness of God is the power that you embody and share with each of us.
Okay, I'm going to have EJ bless you with, mist you with Our Lady of Lourdes. And what's on this is a blend of sacred waters from the spring from Our Lady of Lourdes in France. And it's blended with flower essences and crystals. And if you know the story of the Lady of Lourdes, people go there to be healed. So we're going to just spray this over their head that they have any healing that they desire in their life. It's now happening for you. Do you want to say anything, Ishay?
Welcoming you with the Spirit, knowing that your presence is the opening for Spirit to move through you into this world. your bodies and your minds and your hearts are the portals that God has made specifically as God's voice through you. We welcome that. We welcome that here. We bless you for it.
Nice, okay, beautiful. Okay, last but not least, when we become a practitioner, you want me to speak or you want to say anything? Okay, I'll do it. All right, so we have rose water. So all you're going to do is, again, just mist it over above their head, Susan. And rose water is to open their hearts and open their minds so that they are receptive to spirit. They are open when they see someone in front of them, and they have open-hearted communication with all people. Yeah? Yeah, so it's beautiful. Thank you, Susan. I think, is that it? Do I have everybody? Okay, so last but not least, I'll put this down. We're going to do a few things, and somebody want to put their new practitioner badges on? You want to do it, Susan? Okay, somebody else want to do one? Here, you can do one. That'd be great. So you now are official. Isn't that cool? Yeah. I know, right? Okay, and then we have a few more parting gifts, okay? I feel like The Price is Right. Okay, so I'll tell you exactly. Okay, if you want to tape that onto their badge and somebody else want to tape Douglas, you can tape that onto her badge. And what it says is, I make a difference. Okay, is that cool? Okay, and let's see, I just have a few little things. Okay, so I did a prayer, I know. I did a prayer about joy and fun. So what I am inviting you to do with these, you have 3 little wands. Now we all love Harry Potter. So what I'm going to have you do is take this wand, you can hand one to Roxy and Lily. Yeah. And what you're going to do is place them around your house. You can put them in your garden, and they're hearts. And they're to remind you of joy and fun and the magic that is always surrounding us. Because whenever we pray, we have that come into our lives. So it's a reminder, and we can go, ding, ding. Okay, my prayer is answered. Anyway, so it's kind of a fun thing to do. Now, another little gift, so each of you, so we can give one to you. This is incense. So it's Asian spice and patchouli. All right, so that's when you're meditating on the sweetness of life and the beauty of God. And so they're gorgeous. Last but not least, the Rev last night. I know, right? Okay, so I know. So what I did, I made your own set of qualities as a practitioner. So I put them in these little bag. I also put in an angel, okay? And I also put in 3 candles and a little candle holder for when you meditate, when you're contemplating, to remember this day. Put your little angel next to your candle. You can pick a quality when you're having a rough day, and see what quality shows up. So these are your practitioner quality cards. Okay? Yay, you're so welcome. Yay. What? Oh, yeah, just a little bag. I'll put it in here. Anyway, so we now welcome you into Singer of the Heart and to do a chamber of prayer around you. So stay standing. And what we're going to do, so practitioners, let's go around the room and everybody in the congregation go ahead and sit. all of you that are sitting, go ahead and put your hands out to receive. If you want to bless these women, you can do that too. But if you want to receive for a minute and then send prayers to them, it's perfectly fine. So what we're going to do, I'm going to get started, and I'm going to just on the count of 3, we're just going to pray all at once. I'm turning off my mic, and then when we are complete, it'll just naturally have a completion. Okay, and 1, 2, and 3. I know that God is all there is, and that there's one life, one power, one presence, and I'm so grateful for that truth. And I know that Roxy and Lily are held in the loving life and the divine of God. And I know that whatever their desires are there met in this moment, whatever strength, courage, determination they need, I know that that is present for you as well. And I'm grateful and thankful that anything is not necessary in their life. I just push it away. I let it go back to whence it came, and I'm so grateful for that truth. So now I just hold Roxy and Lily in a beautiful vortex of love, peace, joy, and abundance. And for that I am truly grateful and thankful, and I lovingly release this prayer into the infinite hands of Spirit. For that I am truly grateful and thankful. And I just say, and so it is. Amen. Yay. Awesome. I just got some more chills. That was so good. So thank you. Blessings, blessings, blessings. And just thank you all for being here during this beautiful celebration of their life. And they're moving into another stage of awareness. And that's really what it's about. So thank you, beloved ones. Okay? Oh, that was good. Was that good for you? Good for me? All right.